Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where Calvin runs you through kind of the daily operations of running a nonprofit in Africa, going through growing the Grassroots, my specific nonprofit, some of the things that we do on a daily basis, some of the projects that we have, some of the problems that we encounter, and hopefully something that I share with somebody out there will help them in their path, either to doing volunteer work in Africa like I have, or starting a nonprofit, or volunteering for a nonprofit, or just doing general agriculture work out there. Something might be useful for you. Today, it's been about a month since I've posted a full-blown video, and I'm really sorry about that. I've spent the last month kind of trying to figure out how to really optimize videos, because on all of my longer form videos, like these 20-minute, 30-minute ones, I've gotten like 20 to 50 views on all of them. I'm not going for views necessarily. I think at some point, somewhere, someday, this will help somebody. But I wanted to take the last month to try to really figure out, how does YouTube push things out? How can you try to reach a few more people than just 20 people right now? Because these videos do take quite a while. So I've spent a lot of time the last month making a bunch of shorts. If you guys have seen, each short has gotten a couple hundred views. It's kind of fun. Still trying to figure out how to make the longer form videos go out there more. But anyways, today we're back with episode 6. So what is on the itinerary today? I had about 4 things lined out because it's been about a month, but I think the first thing on the list is going to take quite a while. So let's just get through that and see where that leaves us. And the first thing on our list for today was comparing our 2 soil samples that we had done on our land in 2024 with Njala University. A young man, very bright master student named Noah Brima came out to our land. Super nice young man. And he took a series of 9 samples on 2 different occasions. The first time was February 2024. The second time was April, 2 months later. The reason we wanted to do the same soil sample twice, 2 months apart, is because in February we had just purchased 2.5 more acres of land for our farm, turning it into a 5-acre continuous parcel. So before bulldozing or clearing it, we wanted to get the base numbers from what is that soil right now as it is in the bush. We got the percent nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, a few other metrics I'll show you. And then after bulldozing, we did the exact same soil testing 2 months later. It's very interesting what we saw. It's a lot of expected things, but I want to go over with you what happens to soil when you bulldoze it. When you bring a bulldozer and you compact it, and you're pushing soil around and you're mixing in the topsoil with the bottom soil, how does that affect the pH and the nutrient levels across the soil? Let's take a look. So what I'm going to do for us is pull up the comprehensive soil analysis report that Noah Brima prepared for us. It has the first results and the second results, and then a discussion to go along with it. And just to clarify something before I get into it, and I'll pull it up on the screen and I'll read everything through for us. But I just want to clarify something before we get going. I mentioned in a previous video that after 2,000 soil samples in the country, the average pH was a 4.2, and the highest numbers that they saw were a 4.7. Now, those 2,000 soil samples they took, those measurements were taken from soil profiles that are continuously used on an annual rotation for agriculture. So meaning they get slashed and burned for 1 season of continuous use, and then they let it grow back out, only to burn it again a year later. If I was talking about any type of soil in the country, there are going to be higher numbers, probably 6s and 7s in the deep bushes that have never been really used for agriculture. But the 2,000 samples, again, I was talking about are for continuously used agriculture farms. All right, let me pull up the website so you guys can see how to do this as well. If we are on the main page, we click on For Sierra Leone Farmers. This page needs a big update, but click More Important Ag Information. You can look at the first analysis or second analysis on its own, and the comprehensive as well. The comprehensive is what we're going to go over today in depth. I'm not going to go over everything, but I'm going to go over some of the most important stuff and then give my input as well. Starting with the introduction here, the analytical services at Njala University was hired by Growing the Grassroots to carry out soil sampling and analysis. Accordingly, 1 person was dispatched to the location to carry out sampling activities. That was Noah Brima, like I said. Soil samples were collected from 1 location at Ticonco, but at different slope levels, the summit, the middle, and the foot slope. Let me show you what that actually looks like on our land. So this was the summit. It's clearly higher on the west than it is down here on the east. So the summit was all over here. Now one sample was taken on the corner over here, one in the middle, and then one in the far back. And then for the middle, there's one sample taken here, one right here, and then one right here. And then for the lower foot slope, one sample taken here, and one here. So that is 9 samples across the land, did the exact same soil sample twice over those 2 months. These sampling points were identified and fertility samples were collected within the outlined areas. All samples underwent physical soil and chemical soil analysis, and the report herein gives details of the procedures followed. Okay, so this was the first set of data, all of this, from the first sample in February, and this is the second one from April. Okay, so we're going to see a few important things here. First off, the pH of the soil was higher in the first set of data collected in February. On the summit, the highest point of the land on that west side, average pH was 5.11. The middle average pH was 4, and the lower average was 4.78. Now, as we look down here, pH averages out to a 4.63, 4.68, and a 4.96. Typically, you're going to see that homogenization of soil when you mix it up, especially with something big like a bulldozer. We're pushing soil from the summit to the middle, to the lower, and vice versa. So that's why those pHs seem to change and sort of blend together. This EC is the electrical conductivity of the soil. A low EC number typically means low in salinity, so low salt, which means that you're going to have pretty low nutrient uptake, typically. A number under 400 is a pretty small EC number, and a number over 800 is a little bit on the high side of the EC number. So you want to be somewhere between 400 and 800 if you're using these units. Can't remember what that means right now, but that's the unit, okay, 400 to 800. We've got 17, 34, and 18. That is incredibly low, very low salinity, which means we have pretty low nutrient uptake. That was from the first data set. The second data set, we had a 59, a 60, and a 74. Now, I don't know, people, I don't know why the overall electrical conductivity measurements went up by like triple, but still 60 to 74, these are still significantly lower than the 400 number, which is typically considered on the lower end for a good number of salinity. So that's the electrical conductivity that we saw in our land before and after bulldozing. Percent sand, silt, and clay. Overall, we had sandy loam for all the measurements, okay, before and after. The percent sand went down on all of them, which was interesting. It went down 10%. Meanwhile, the silt percentages seem to have gone up about 5 to 10 points, and then the clay percentages went up another 4, 5, 10 points. Okay. The reason that can happen is because sand typically is on the surface of the soil, and when you're bulldozing it, you are pushing that sand deeper into the horizon of the soil. So what is left at the top is going to be more of a homogenized mix between the sand, silt, and clay after bulldozing. But still, with numbers like this, that still classifies everything as a sandy loam. Sorry guys, I figured it'd be way more intriguing for you if you could see me as well. Moving into the percent of carbon before and after, let's look at this. The percent carbon before bulldozing was a 1.3, 1.2, 1.3, so average is 1.3%. After bulldozing, 1.1, 1.97, and 2.27. Wow, average over 1.6% carbon. To be honest, you guys, I don't know why the percent carbon would have gone up. The only thing I can think is that carbon would have been deeper in the horizon, and as you bulldozed, you brought carbon higher, closer to the surface of the soil. Percent nitrogen went down though, went 0.04, 0.04, 0.08%. That's insanely low, you guys. And then after bulldozing, it got worse. 0.03, 0.01, 0.03%. Oh my gosh, in the middle of our land, we have 0.01% nitrogen available. That is as low, that's almost as low as it gets. There's only one number lower than that. How can we increase our percent nitrogen? Planting legumes is a very good way, on a crop rotation especially. So legumes are like beans, cowpeas, black beans, soybeans, peanuts. So planting legumes on a rotation every other season would be a really good way to start, increasing percent nitrogen. Another one would be adding compost. Another one would be adding manure. So, or compost manure, mixing the two together. Um, Adding or keeping plant material on the surface of the soil after a season instead of taking it off. Mulching would help. That adds decomposition over several years. Um, after you pick weeds, instead of taking them off of the soil, just keep them on the surface of the soil. Let them add nitrogen back in. The soil sampling area. Okay, I just mentioned all of this before you. Okay, and then I'm not going to go over this too much, the soil sample preparation, how they went about preparing the soil. They brought samples back from the lab, they are air dried, sieved through screens, yada yada. If you want to go through this, you can, but this is how they determined everything, the determination of pH. What was their methodology for determining it? Electrical conductivity, same thing, texture. So we'll just keep going. Okay, moving on into the findings. This is written in kind of African English. It's a little bit difficult, so I'll be paraphrasing some of this, okay? Physical properties of the soil samples analyzed were presented in Table 1. The results showed that soil pH was low in all the sampled points as a result of both natural and artificial addition in the soil, as evidence of our soils being low in pH across Sierra Leone. The soil was generally compacted in its natural form with low potential of permeability and infiltration rate, which could have given high bulk density if it was determined. I did not know that they could measure bulk density. Now that I do, I will certainly test for that next year. But every time you use a bulldozer, you're going to increase your bulk density severely. And it takes about 10 years to fully decompact a soil and recreate its perfect soil structure. It takes 10 years. Bulk density is an indication of soil compaction. pH, which is the measure of hydrogen ion concentration in the soil, indicates lower reading in both the two results obtained. Okay, basically low pH, sounds like. When the soil pH is low, nutrients tend to be unavailable to the crop, accounting to high aluminum solubility. This all results in lower or smaller grain sizes, root retardation, lower nutrient uptake. The pH for the first samples collected were 5.11, 4.05, and 4.78. The second samples, as we already mentioned, 4.63, 4.68, and 4.96 respectively. The soil tends to increase with depth due to the closeness towards the parent material. Okay, this sentence doesn't really make much sense, but what I think he's trying to say, what I know he's trying to say is the soil pH tends to increase the higher you get in the soil profile, meaning the closer to the surface, the higher the pH. The lower in the horizon you are, the lower the pH. The reason is because the higher in the surface you are, the closer to the plant material, the decomposing material, all the organic stuff, increases the pH, makes it more neutral. Increases in organic matter can help the soil to recover or improve its natural buffering capacity. That means it can raise the pH of the soil, adding organic matter. The soil pH for the first sample was higher as a result of the presence of humus, but changes after bulldozing due to thorough mixing of the soil changed that all. Okay, so humus is another word for organic matter. It's the stuff that's on top of the soil that's just pure nutrients, and it builds up every single year that a forest is left untouched. So after we mix that all in, that's why the pH is averaged lower. The optimum soil pH is 6.5. If your soil pH is under 5.5, you might be not reaching your maximum potential. We know that, we're feeling that, we're trying to fix that. There are many consequences to this. Many elements become less available to plants, while others such as iron, aluminum, manganese become toxic to plants. The pH values, which range from 4.4 to 5.5, are considered to be strongly acidic. The electrical conductivity values were also low, with values ranging from 17 to 74. Okay, this is what I was talking about before. Under 400 is pretty darn low. This indicates non-saline conditions for all the samples. Values for particle size distribution indicate high sand and silt contents in all soils, with increasing numbers in the first collected sample. Okay, the sand content tends to reduce in the second set of samples analyzed. The reason is that all the field was bulldozed, mixing all the organic matter across the field, thereby homogenizing the entire profile. Okay, so the sand, that's what I'm saying. The sand reduced by 11%, like we were talking about earlier. Why was that? Because of the homogenization of everything, mixing it all in. The texture, sandy loam, stayed at sandy loam, high infiltration rate. So even though we have a high bulk density, so it's we technically have low permeability, we still have a high infiltration rate because it's such a high content of sand. Kind of awkward, but there is a difference there. So the clay and silt could be compacted together so much that a plate of compacted silt and clay, a raindrop might hit it and it might not ever flow through that grain on the ground. But when you got a bunch of sand all over on the ground, no matter how much compaction you've had, water can just run through sand. Okay, yeah, we went over this. Chemical properties of the soils. Okay, the chemical nutrients analyzed for the 6 soil samples are presented below. From the results obtained, soil organic carbon ranged from 1.11 to 1.97. That's the lowest to the highest. Organic matter in the soil is referred to as the blood chain of the soil. It helps improve the soil structure, water, and nutrient retention capacity. So in other words, a higher number than 1.97 would really be beneficial, and that's pretty darn low. A soil that has high organic matter buildup will be rich in carbon. The organic carbon content was generally low, less than 3%, both before and after bulldozing, with the highest being 2.27%. Geez, so considered low is less than 3. Our highest was 2.27. That's brutal. And that's in the lowest part of the profile too, where deposition is high. So I'll show you that again. All of your nutrients typically flow from the west, where it's highest in the land, all the way down here. This is the lowest point of our land, and this is where we have the best carbon. The process of bulldozing greatly contributed to the organic matter mineralization, the process by which chemicals present in organic matter are decomposed or oxidized. Cool. Nitrogen availability was less than 1% of the total nitrogen, indicating a condition of low nitrogen across the general field. Nitrogen can be naturally added and lost in the soil through nitrification and volatilization, respectively. I don't know what that means, but like I said before, a few ways to add nitrogen are adding legumes, which fix nitrogen themselves, add mulch, add compost, add manure, keep the plant materials on your soil after you've harvested, keep weeds on the soil after you've picked them. The level of nitrogen in the soil was analyzed with ranges from 0.01% to 0.08%. That is so bad. There were massive reductions in nitrogen after the land was excavated, from 0.08 to 0.03, which could have been a result of climate factors. So maybe what that means is in April when they took this, there had probably been some rains already just starting, and maybe the mixing of the soil caused some nitrogen to become exposed and then eroded out with the rain. I don't know, just a guess. Okay, we saw all of this for the most part. This is good to kind of see again. Total phosphorus content was at a moderate level, 7.3 to 19.5 milligrams per kilogram in the soil before bulldozing. The phosphorus content became low after bulldozing, showed drastic reduction in that final third. Phosphorus levels in Sierra Leone are generally low as a result of low pH. If soils are too acidic, phosphorus reacts with iron and aluminum, which makes it unavailable to the plant. Also, if the soil is too alkaline, it reacts with calcium and it becomes inaccessible. Maximum availability of phosphorus generally occurs between 6 and 7 pH, which serves as one of the benefits of liming acidic soils, which we're going to try to do this year. The availability of phosphorus is controlled by 3 factors, which includes pH, mineralogy, organic matter content, and placement of fertilizer. We have a few opportunities and challenges here, so let's see what they said. After bulldozing, much differences were not visible in terms of topo sequences, and effective management strategies can easily be exercised across the field. With more addition of organic matter, both the texture and structure can be improved, with the soil name changing from sandy loam to silty loam, helping the land to conserve more nutrients. Silty loam is what we want. Sandy loam is what we have. How can we turn a sandy into a silty loam? We need to dilute that sand a little bit more. That would be by adding more compost, organic matter, things that are just not sand. Compost, organic matter, plant materials are definitely what we're starting with. Homogeneity can be achieved through the bulldozed activity, and several crops can be planted across the land at a shorter time frame now. Although we do have a low pH still, if we do a few things actively like add compost while we're planting, we can achieve fine results right now. And we are achieving fine results right now. Challenges. The general management of soil acidity through liming is much more expensive due to the cost of commercial liming material. I mentioned this in an old video, but another way to lime is eggshells, oyster shells, and limestone. Limestone is now considered a natural resource in Sierra Leone, and the coast has the oyster shells market locked down, meaning it's expensive, and they know they can sell it for high price. So the only thing that's left to us is commercial lime. We can buy that in Freetown, but it is expensive. Don't remember the cost per bag, but I want to say it's like $20 a bag, and we would need something like 100 bags for an acre. I'm making up numbers right now, but yeah, it's going to be expensive. Eggshells would be really fun. I was thinking about doing something cool in the community where we set up like a compost bin, and we can even give out incentives for people when they give us their eggshells. But people have eggs all the time because chickens are all over the place. It's a pretty cheap source of protein and energy for kids, adults, anybody. It's good for people with bad stomachs, eggs. Might be able to salvage some eggs from a school or from a hospital, other nonprofits, or like I said, a community compost pit with a little incentive, but we'll think about it. Challenge number 2, problem of leaching will be experienced as a result of high percentage of sand. Like we said, we need to change that sandy loam into a silty loam. How do we do that? More manure, more compost, more plant residue, etc. Challenge number 3, some nutrient levels were definitely low. Yeah, percent nitrogen, definitely low. We need to focus on compost a lot this year, and manure. Manure is way more concentrated. Problems of erosion due to the general slope across the field. That we do have, that slight slope. It's probably a 5 to 7% slope. How can we mitigate that? We can make certain walking paths that would go with the flow of water so that we aren't getting these rills, like the channels of erosion going through our beds. If we carve out our walkways in certain ways, hopefully the water will divert into walkways and flow straight off of the land. That's how we've done it in the past, although it's not a perfect system. And security. Security meaning, I think like real security guards. Maybe a fence. We did have some crops stolen last season, so good point. Thank you guys. Recommendations now. Soil physical and chemical properties. Soil pH is extremely low and can be adversely affect productivity by affecting both chemical and biological soil properties. Analytical values obtained during the analysis indicate low quantities of all chemical parameters determined. Nice. Recommendation. A number of soil management strategies can be employed to improve fertility. Oh, let's see what Njala says. Application of liming materials. Application of inorganic fertilizers, NPK. Application of organic fertilizers, manure and compost. Adoption of integrated soil fertility management. Better crop rotations like legumes to a vegetable crop, back to legumes, etc. Possible erosion problems. The land is gently sloped. Construct terraces across the slopes onto the sites with very steep slopes. Terraces. Just like they do in China, terrace farming. That's a good idea. Grow tree crops on contours across the slopes. That we do plan to do. When we have our chickens, goats, sheep, pigs on the east side of the land where it's lower, we plan to have rows of crops over there, tree crops. to do inter-tree cropping, actually. So a row of tree crops, and then a row of ground crops, row of tree crops, row of ground crops, like that. Also grow cover crops like Munuka. That's a bean. That's some type of bean, I think. Which is a legume. That's a good idea. Cover crop protects soil, and that'd be a legume. That kind of kills two birds with one stone. Community involvement to enhance the successful implementation of the agronomic activities. Community dwellers that season farmers should be involved in certain stages of production. We do that. That's a great suggestion. We have farm-based organization women in the community that come over and help us out at certain stages of planting, like at planting, fertilizer application, second application, weeding, second weeding, harvesting, processing, sale. So that can actually be a couple of weeks throughout the year that they're needed. Okay. Oh, this is a good description of pH. Extremely acidic is under 4.5, and we're seeing averages, after bulldozing, 4.68, 4.63, 4.96. So we're sitting at strongly acidic typically, which is low productivity. Not bad. So that's it for today, you guys. Thank you for following along. That was the study. Again, if you want to see the whole thing, read it more clearly, go to growinthegrassroots.org and you can find it there. I hope somebody learned something today about electrical conductivity or percent carbon, percent nitrogen, sandy loam versus a silty loam, the slopes. I hope somebody took something away from this. And if anybody has any specific comments that they want, specific help on any videos, let me know. Thanks, you guys. And of course, go to growingthegrassroots.org to see more of our stories. Go to our Instagram page and our Facebook page because we are very active on those. We have great engagement. We have a very fun social media team that does an awesome job. And go to bridge-to-africa.com, and that is my personal little ecotourism, voluntourism website. You can do volunteer work, you can do tourism, you can do a mix of both. I don't care. Customize your trip how you want to. I or a member of my staff in Africa will accompany you and do a private guided tour for as long as you want to be there. My whole life is Africa, so if you want me to be there, I will be there anytime. And thanks a lot, you guys. Have a great day, and we will see you guys soon.